We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, the podcast where we explore the art of songwriting, celebrate incredible artists and dive deep into the stories behind their music. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and as always, thank you for joining us. Our guest today on the podcast is the extraordinary Ruby Gill. The South African-born, Naarm-based singer-songwriter has built a reputation for crafting hauntingly beautiful and deeply introspective music. Songs that explore life's most intimate and human moments while often holding up a mirror to the world around us. Last week, Ruby released her breathtaking second album titled Some Kind of Control. It is a stunning display of minimal, heartfelt songwriting that's unafraid to ask some difficult questions, infused with dry wit, political commentary, and moments of genuine vulnerability. It's also easily one of my favourite records of 2025 so far. Now, in today's episode, we're welcoming Ruby back to the podcast to talk about Some Kind of Control and the process behind writing these deeply personal and powerful songs. We dive into how she channels frustration into catharsis, crafting tracks that are as emotionally resonant as they are musically uplifting. We also talk about the all-female choir that she assembled for the record, which features artists like McKittrick and Angie McMahon, and how she's planning to bring these songs to life on stage. Now, we want to say a massive thank you to Liz for her help with today's episode and remind you that Some Kind of Control by Ruby Gill is out right now. Ruby is also playing some very special shows to celebrate the release, including performances at Northcote Social Club in Naarm and Phoenix Central Park in Gadigal. You'll find ticket links and places to purchase the record within today's show notes. While you're there, please make sure to follow us across our socials and subscribe to this very podcast. We've had guests like Franz Ferdinand, Mallrat, Perfume Genius, Sharon Van Etten, and the Goo Goo Dolls on just this year alone, so subscribing ensures that you'll stay up to date with all of our future episodes and guests. All right, let's get into it. Here is our conversation with Ruby Gill.
To silence the devil that sits on my shoulder, who tries to convince me that I am an angel when I just want you to fall.
Please welcome back to This Song Is Yours, Ruby Gill. Ruby, hello. How's it going?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming to join us and have a chat today. I'm really excited to have you back. Your previous episode on the podcast was one of our personal favourites, and we had so much lovely feedback from a number of fans about that episode. So really excited to continue the conversation today and kind of chat about this new record of yours.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. It's nice to continue something and not just, do it once and hope it exists in its own little bubble. It's nice to evolve it a little bit.
100% agreed. And again, one of my favourite episodes. I think you're one of the, not one of the few people, but standing past. Anytime you'd like to come back to the podcast, you're more than welcome.
Oh, Simon, that's very generous. Thank you.
Of course. But we are here today to talk about Some Kind of Control, which is the brand new record from yourself. When this episode is being aired to people to listen, the record will have been out for a week or so. Firstly, congratulations on this beautiful, beautiful record. How are you feeling with it out now in the world and people able to listen to it?
Thank you. I feel a deep sense of relief as well as pride. I think it's a record that I'm very, very proud of. And I don't, say that lightly, but it just took a lot to make, and it's really special to be able to share it. And it feels like a bit of a weight off me, and a chance to move on internally, not just in a, career sense, but just open myself up to more. So I am excited that it's out and that people are listening to it, and it feels very special.
I love that. It is a stunning record, and I'm going to be very complimentary. I'll just give you a heads up about the record today. It is, I can imagine, somewhat of a weight off your shoulders. This record is very intimate in both sonic and lyrical content, but it is addressing and kind of talking about some, I don't necessarily even want to say heavier subject matter, but more personal and inward-facing subject matter, I believe. And so I imagine that there is an element for yourself that is feeling that sense of relief, or almost, not to play into, a songwriter cliche, but catharsis almost.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think the other day, actually, I was driving through South Africa, through just like a very long 6-hour drive. And my partner has never heard my first record, which is just a funny thing that's happened. And then nobody ever bothered, and that's totally fine. But I thought with this record, the new record, about to come out, can we listen to the old one and then listen to the new one and just sort of take this time to sort of see how things have evolved? And it was really interesting, mostly for me, to listen to the old one and realize like how much I was still holding back, or how sort of, random some of that stuff sounds, even though at the time it felt so meaningful. And then listening to this new one and just feeling this deep sense of alignment with myself, hearing it come back to me. And yes, it's about, like incredibly intimate or personal themes, but it's also just completely about me, and I was very honest in it, and it's so nice to hear it reflected back to me as exactly who I am. And so I feel no like shame or fear around those heavier bits of it. I feel more just like, oh, thank God I figured that out, and also thank goodness I've captured it, and it's as correct and honest as it is, because it just feels like really aligned to who I am as a person. If you met me in the bar, the room, the street, I don't know where you would meet me. If you met me, you'd hear, I guess, the person on that record, which is always my goal. And it's a weird goal as an artist, but it's like, I don't want to be removed from myself in this project of myself. Like this is the Ruby Gill album, and I want it to be me, and I'm grateful to have created something that is me, which means it has a whole lot of very intimate stuff in it, and I am an incredibly emotional person, so it has big stuff in there, and it's lucky that it was captured so beautifully and gently and intimately, and it feels just exactly how I was feeling those feelings. So that's a bit of a ramble, but to say, yes, it's big, and it's nice big. Yeah.
I would agree. I think in some of the press and some of the research leading up to our conversation today, I did see that you also referred to it, although we're looking at honest subject matter, that this record is, and I'm going to make sure I get the quote correct, cheekier, looser, gayer, and even more raw than the previous record, which I would agree with those suggestions as well. I think that this is a really great encapsulation of almost like of the human experience, or of your own human experience. And an absolutely stunning record. When you went into starting up, I guess, knowing that there is going to be a second record and beginning to collect and collate all these songs, was there a theme that you knew you wanted to kind of build around it, other than it being its most kind of true self? Or was there another kind of thing at play that you wanted to have the record kind of cover?
I think when I was writing the songs, I didn't have any thematic thread in mind, because I was just sort of bumbling along and trying to figure things out, and a lot of writing was happening for me. But when I was pulling the songs together and sort of trying to choose them, I had a 40 songs to choose from that I had written over a sort of 2-year period. And when I sat with them, and when I also sat with them and Tim, my producer who worked on this record, Tim Harvey, we felt like the most recent ones, which I had written, quite recently when we were listening, were the ones that felt most alive and true and interesting as a collection. And their theme was strong, like there was a thematic thread that ran through them, but not intentionally. But there were these, upon listening, themes of like a lot of body stuff, a lot of like looking at myself and accepting myself and my skin and my body, and going quite deep into insecurities or even just like thoughts I'd had that I'd never fully expressed. And I think maybe that body theme came from the fact that I was mostly alone during the time I was writing those songs. I was like holed up in my tiny little Northcote apartment during lockdown, and all I had to look at was myself, as so many of us did. And so I really did just look quite a lot, which is not something I've given myself the opportunity to do. But then, interestingly, the other, themes that came out of those songs were very sort of like political lens or like outward societal lens on gender and sexuality and men and control and a bit there about nature that always is in everything I do. And I was not very close to nature in that time. So there's all these sort of huge outward conversations I was having with myself, even though I was not in those outward spaces sort of at all during that time. And so those songs just had this very tangible feeling of like staring myself down in the mirror and really trying to reckon with who I am in a very confusing and big context where lots of stuff was going wrong and lots of stuff is, going wrong and lots of stuff feels unsafe. So it was this cool realization that I had been reckoning with a theme, even though it wasn't intentional. But I'm glad to have come to this collection, and Some Kind of Control is one of the songs on that record, but it's also the name of the album because that is sort of, to me, what the biggest message was this idea of control of oneself, of one's own like beliefs and experiences and pleasure and desire and ideas, but then also like who is controlling me or trying to control us or trying to have control over this planet and our time and our pleasure and desire and all those, things. So that's where we got to. But it started, very loosely with me just waking up at 6 a.m. and trying to write a song every day.
I very much appreciate you sharing that. I can imagine that for a lot of the experience of, spending quite a lot of time with oneself and having that time to simply just do that and kind of look inward and almost re-review or kind of reconsider everything that you know about yourself is a bit of a daunting task. And I would never place Ruby Gill as a non-fearless songwriter. I think that you're a pretty fearless songwriter. Yeah. I wonder with songs like this, is there any apprehension in how you approach sharing some of those things, or at least how you maybe word them and get them to be conveyed in the way that you want them to be without, losing that little part of yourself or the privacy of looking inwards?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And it's something I struggle with because I just overshare my whole life whenever someone asks me anything, not out of a desire to, but just because I feel like a very open person and I like talking about my feelings. I am very aware of how they land though. And so I've been trying to think about that, for myself as a protective measure of like, there's been times where I've played these songs live at shows and then people have asked additional questions after the show and wanted to like probe deeper into some of the themes or ask me what I meant about that thing about my family or who was the person in that song. And I have felt really awful when I've shared too much and I've then gone home and gone like, oh my goodness, I just gave away my entire like life's story to that person because I thought it was part of like the album interview process, or I thought this is what connection in music means. But of course I don't have to say everything, and there's certain things around that record that are about individual people or experiences who still scare me a little bit and like who I don't want to talk about and I don't want to name and I don't want to even go there for myself because I, wrote a healing song about it, but I don't want to be thinking about those things every day. So it's a really fine line for me of remembering that I can say no to sharing and I can I'm good at giving a waffle and a vague, but generous answer that doesn't delve too deep. But yeah, it's an interesting thing that I'm grappling with in music or as a musician in a public setting where you go so deep to write these things and you like really reveal your guts. And then often the magic of that is that people connect with it. But the flip side of that coin is that people like want more of it or you are expected to then, go deeper. And yeah, I'm just sure I will figure it out or I won't, and I'll spend my life roller coastering through like yes and no's. But I am trying to be gentle with myself, and it's why I feel a bit vague sometimes at the moment, which is rare for me, but it's fine.
Like anything in life, it's all about that balance, and so hopefully that does come for yourself. And one song, kind of with keeping that in mind, there was one song I wanted to ask about today without being too probing and without kind of almost doing exactly what you just said happens and you're trying to kind of find that balance. It was a song that I thought you did absolutely masterfully on the record because I feel that it's a shared sentiment across a lot of people, regardless of gender, race, sexual orientation. Room full of human male politicians. The track on this album, I feel that there is a lot of anger in the world at the moment at the situation we all find ourselves in, if that's a way that I can explain it in a very broad sense without getting too granular. And I feel that this track addressed the anger, but it's not an angry track. It actually just calls out the absurdity in a matter-of-fact kind of way, which I thought was just, again, masterfully done. Wondering whether you might be able to share, I guess, how you approached this song and having it not be a loud, angry track, but more so like these are the facts and this is why it's crazy almost kind of track.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is to me, it's like the funniest song on the record, or like it seems so like light and silly and witty, but it's actually probably like the most political or the most important one to me in a sort of like outward looking way. And I was just watching, the news every day, and I was seeing the same. I was about to swear. Can I swear on this podcast?
Please go for it.
Yes. The same fucking man get on the screen every day. And it was like, it didn't matter what country I was tuning into. It was Australia. It was like looking back at South Africa. It was looking over to America. And I think a lot of the song was at the time inspired by America and inspired by, like Roe versus Wade being overturned and all these like manly decisions being made that just impacted every one of my friends and, our bodies, and especially like women and gender diverse people and trans people and queer people and like all of the, buckets I hold myself in. I just was so angry about it, but I was also just laughing at like, oh my God, another one of this man, like this guy again. And the bridge of that song was me just literally saying that, like, after the break, more with this guy and his, hateful fears about everything. And it's that, like, ridiculousness that led that song into being. It wasn't the anger. It was more the chuckling at how stupid it is that I have to watch this thing again. And I just sat with that feeling for a while. And then I was listening to a podcast by Jane Goodall about chimpanzees, which had nothing to do with men or politics or anything. But two of the songs off this record were written based on phrases that she said. The one was a room full of human male politicians. And I don't even know what she was talking about. I've never gone back to listen. I just remember scribbling that down and going home that night and just immediately wanting to, finish this song about this room full of human male politicians who are just like every day on my screen. And yeah, it became a very fun and cathartic song to write about, like, all the questions I have for the room, and like what all the things that I'm finding ridiculous and hard. And it was fun to play with humor in that song, because it allowed me to feel this deep sense of power and almost like ownership over the feelings that no one could ever argue with, and no one could decree incorrect or, sign my life away from. It's like, it was very much me saying, I actually know exactly what's happening. And it's really silly. So, I mean, it's not silly. It's incredibly heavy, but I needed to say it in that lightness in order to get it out in a way that I think people can immediately feel and relate to without having to, without having to be hateful or to be like desperately angry so that it sounds like somebody screaming at you, instead of someone sitting with you and watching the news together or experiencing the new law or the new way of being and saying, I'm part of your family, or I'm like in your community and I get it and we get it, and we also hold so much power and our perspective is also correct and right. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but it was fun to write, and it's even more relevant now. Like, I wrote that two or more years ago, I think. And I listen to it now with, new governments in Aotearoa and America, and even shifts in Australia and South Africa. And I feel even more aligned with that song in terms of what is happening in the world. And the ridiculousness of the situation we found ourselves in, where powerful men in everywhere in Israel, in America, are taking charge of things that aren't theirs to take charge of. And I hope that's what comes out of that song. And I hope it says, I see you in it, the person, on the ground who is experiencing that. I just said so many words. I hope they made sense.
They 100% made sense. I appreciate you sharing that kind of whole thought with us on the track. It is, I think that's maybe what added that extra power to it, is that, and with no disrespect, because anger is a very valid feeling,
yes,
especially with those subjects. But I think that there's sometimes even more powerful of not the acceptance. I want to be very clear, not the acceptance, but almost the, as you said, the pointing out of the absurdity of it, that next kind of level of processing and being like, just what utter ridiculousness. And there's something almost that is taunting that room full of human male politicians with the track. So it is a incredible track along with the other tracks on this record, Ruby. So I appreciate you kind of sharing that with me. Wanting to celebrate some of those things that those human male politicians want to change or not kind of incorporate in their conversations. For the album, you had an all-female, gender-diverse queer choir who, there's a bit of an all-star lineup that we've got here.
It is.
We've got the two Hannahs. We've got Hannah Cameron, Hannah McKittrick, Annie Ross Maloney, and I believe the lovely Angie McMahon on backing vocals for this choir. How did you rope that together? How did you pull all those voices in one spot?
They happen to be my closest friends, so I was lucky enough to just sort of message the group chat and be like, hi, is everyone free to sing on my record? And everyone was. So, it was really special to have that group of people singing these songs. And I think the first song I received back from like the mixing, period, I don't know what you'd call that part of the process, was To What Do I Owe My Pleasure. And I'd heard it without the choir a million times, but it came back to me with, their voices on it, and they are throughout it. Like, we left everything that they did in there, even just the little random hums that people were doing in between, the takes they were supposed to be doing. And I just burst into tears, like standing at the kitchen counter with my phone on full blast, because I was just like, wow, that's exactly what this thing is about. It's about this like wall of women or gender diverse people and queer people saying like, to what do I owe my pleasure? And I wrote those words, but hearing a whole group of us and my friends especially like singing that felt so powerful and felt just like exactly what had been intended with having so many people on the choir or like the backing vocals of this record, was to allow multiple voices to be sharing those experiences, but also having a whole, I guess a room again of my people backing me up, or like backing up the message of that and saying we accept this and we hold this as, something important and true. So I feel so lucky that they all said yes. And I also feel so grateful to Tim Harvey, the producer who recorded this, for recording it in a way that you can actually hear each person in it. Like every song has the choir, almost, not every, I think pretty much all of them have the choir. But every song sounds like a different person to me, like coming through that choir. There's like the song that I know in my head is the Hannah McKittrick song, and there's the Hannah Cameron song and the Angie McMahon song, because I can just hear their voice like, bellowing above everybody else's. And I love that, personality or intimacy coming through of those real people. It's not just a group. It's like 6 or 7 individuals who contributed to those songs with their very strong, very beautiful, very, important voices.
Both of you have done a fantastic job with it, yourself and Tim. I think that, there was 1 or 2 tracks where it was a very interesting listening experience, because I feel like you could hear individual voices within the choir, although it was still as like a choral kind of group. It's a very impressive way that it's been recorded, this whole album. I think compared to the first record, I went back and had a listen to that before listening to Some Kind of Control, and even the not lack of percussion, but there's a lot less percussion this time around, which I thought kind of added to that intimacy and that gentle nature of the record.
Absolutely. It feels like completely bare except for the choir, which was sort of my instruction to Tim, which was like, please, can we record these as simply as possible, and the only additional instrument be, a group of voices, which means the beds are very stripped back, but they also have so much character in them. Lewis Coleman played the bass, and Jess Elwood played the drums, and they do such weird and interesting things in the record. There's bass lines that I would rather listen to than the rest of the song. Like, they're just so strange and beautiful. And there's, not a lot of drums, but what is there is like holding the song so powerfully and gently. And just like, it's like an emotive piece rather than a percussive piece, as you've just called it. It's there for the energy, not to like over I don't even know how to explain it, but I see that difference, and I'm so glad we did it so strangely, and it's nice to have this very loose but very minimal approach that feels sort of true to how the songs were written and formulated in my head.
I think that it's been recorded, and all, what's the word? The way that it's been recorded and the way that it has then all been presented at the end is really special. I know I kind of keep praising this record, Ruby, so I'm sorry if that's uncomfortable.
No, it's lovely. Thank you. Thank you.
As mentioned, before we started recording, for people who are listening to this, you and I may be chatting a few weeks before the record is coming out. And so when this episode of the podcast is coming out, it'll be just a few days until you're about to play the launch at the Northcote Social Club in Naarm. We'll have links for people to be able to purchase tickets. If there are any left, I'm going to say it's probably sold out by now, but if they are, we'll put them there. Curious for you, is there any track off the record that you're excited to kind of have play in that live arena and see how it kind of works in a live setting?
Yeah, that's really interesting. As we are speaking here, which is, a few weeks before that happens, I am in my mum's house in South Africa. I'm doing some work in South Africa in science communication, of all things, which has nothing to do with the record, I guess. But my old piano is here, and it's been kind of special getting to play it again. It's the piano, I had as a child. And the opening track of the record, oh my God, I was about to get the name wrong. Under the Flying Foxes on the Last Night of Summer. I have actually never played that song except for the moment that it was recorded in the studio. It was a song I'd written as a sort of just like very basic little thing on guitar. And then we really liked it. And Tim said, why don't you just try it on piano? I'll just give you a few takes or whatever. And I just sort of improvised my way through it. And I remember playing that whole song, making it up as I go along and getting to the end of the song and sitting in, the silence of after a take, and Tim didn't say anything for a few seconds, and I was like, oh God, what have I done? And then he came through over the speaker and he was like, wow, that was so special. And he had a tear in his voice. And I just felt so grateful for how sacred and special that take or moment felt of just this unraveling piano, which went on and on and on. I thought I would just play the tiny little song, which is about a minute long, and then end it, but it's got this whole other minute of piano. And so I've been trying to learn it on, my childhood piano back home in South Africa, and it's been really hard to relearn because I did some really wacky things. But I think I'm most excited to play that live because it holds, I don't know, it just holds so much aliveness and healing, and it's such a beautiful opening sentiment for me of I've gotten through this thing. I've gotten to the healing part, and the opening lines of that song are, it's raining for the first time. I've been holding salt mines, but now the wound is healing. And it's just this, it's like the reverse of a closing song where I can say from the front, everything you're about to see or experience is stuff I've worked through. And that's so special to me. It's like I'm not in any of these experiences anymore. I'm not feeling unsafe in my body. I'm not feeling unsure of who I am or how to express myself. And I just feel so good about my life and time. And so I'm excited to play that song to people because I've never said that in that way. I've always sort of, shared all the bits that are feeling hard and feeling interesting and whatever. But that song to me is really peaceful and really, just full of closure and full of wonder at how nice it feels to be on the other end of something. So good luck to me trying to learn it, but the rougher it is, the more true it will sound. I'm sure it doesn't really matter.
There's always some kind of beauty with imperfection, and sometimes in recorded song and everything else, I'm sure that regardless, it is going to be absolutely magical, as will that show. As I mentioned, we'll make sure we put links in the show notes for people to attend the launch and be able to track you in case you are going to play any other shows in support of the record later on in the year.
Yes.
Ruby, we would usually. Oh, that's very exciting to know. We're in Adelaide, and we not rarely, but we do get overlooked sometimes. So hopefully we've got Adelaide on that schedule for you.
Yes, we will. We're actually driving. I'm driving the whole tour in my, I was about to say bucky, which is the word for ute in South Africa, but I'm driving the whole tour with a rooftop tent and a ute. So everywhere I go, I will be disheveled, but we're trying to go everywhere, which will be nice.
That is fantastic to hear, and look forward to hearing how the road trip itself, how the journey of the tour goes. That's very exciting. I'm wondering whether you might be able to share with us, before we wrap things up, what you're currently listening to, if there's anything on high rotation.
Okay, can I share 2 things?
Yeah, go for it.
The one is my friend Annie Rose Maloney, who actually sings on my record, is putting her record out this week as we're talking, but it would be, a few weeks ago by the time this podcast comes out. And her record called Circle Walking was made at a similar time to me, and actually has a similar group of people on it. We are friends in the same circle, and I played piano and sang on her record. And so did, Angie McMahon and Liv Haley and Jess Elwood, who are, part of the crew on my record. And it's been beautiful to have like a sister record out at the same time by someone I respect so much and whose songs are just so incredible and so gentle and so powerful and so connected to the garden and nature and herself. And I've had that record on my Google Drive for as long as it's existed, in the digital realm, and I listen to it all the time. And it's really special to have that out in the world for her, but also for me as a listener. I just think it's a group of such incredible, very vulnerable and, intimate, gentle songs that are so powerful to me. So Annie Rose Maloney is top of my rotation list. And then the other person I've been listening to a lot is Meerna, spelled Meerna, I think. I might be adding N's. But they're from America, and it's just like very sexy, very good, very like makes you want to get in the shower and sing to yourself or something crazy like that. And I'm just grateful for that sort of energy at the moment. I think the world has felt a little heavy and hard to wade through, and that music has helped me sort of lift myself a little and feel, in my body again. So I don't know that person at all, but I'm grateful for the, foreign input into my playlists.
I absolutely love that. Well, we'll make sure that we put links to both in today's show notes. But Ruby Gill, thank you very much for coming back to the podcast, and congrats again on Some Kind of Control. It is out right now. Links in the show notes for people to purchase the records, follow you on your socials. But thank you again for coming to chat.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks for having me and asking such lovely questions.